The air was sharp with autumn chill, the kind that bites your knuckles and makes your breath hang like a ghost. It was barely past dawn on October 12th, 2024, when I stepped onto the porch of my cabin, tucked deep in the cedar-shadowed slopes of Willow Creek, Oregon. My old hound, Jasper, stirred at my feet, his ears twitching before I even heard the crunch of boots on the gravel path. Two strangers in crisp jackets stitched with a badge that looked real from a distance, but flimsy up close marched up like they owned my land. They called themselves agents of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association, waving papers that trembled in their hands. I told them to get off my porch. My voice was steady, but Jasper's low growl said what I didn't need to. Their nerve, showing up on private land at first light, had me choking back a laugh, the kind that's half anger, half disbelief. They introduced themselves as Carter and Ellis, field representatives sent to enforce some vague community standards. Carter clutched a clipboard like it was a shield. Ellis fiddled with a phone, filming my front door like it was evidence in a crime scene. They handed me a courtesy notice, claiming my firewood stack, my dad's old toolbox, and the chipped green kettle on the rail violated rules about noise, storage, and aesthetic cohesion. I asked what law gave a neighborhood club the right to judge a cabin on county land. Carter mumbled about consistency, his words slick as wet leaves. I told them to show me a judge's signature or step back. They didn't budge. Ellis zoomed in on my doorframe, and Carter flashed a plastic badge that caught the weak morning light like a toy. They said the board chair had signed off, and I could face eviction. I laughed, sharp enough to scatter sparrows from the pines. Jasper's tail stiffened. I opened the door, reached for the smooth stock of my granddad's shotgun, polished every fall, never fired in anger, and cradled it across my arms, not pointing, just present. Their eyes widened. Carter's knees shook, gravel slipping under his boot. I said, "This is private land. Leave." They muttered about calling the county, and I invited them to do it. Willow Creek's sheriff knows my deed lines better than most. They retreated to a dented gray SUV with crooked HOA decals, but not before taping their notice to my door with blue tape, the word penalties screaming in bold font. I called the sheriff's office, gave them the parcel number, and snapped photos of the paper, the tape, the misspelled words that betrayed their rush. Dispatcher Laura knew my place, knew the long feud between the HOA and folks who live where the cedars meet the creek. She promised a deputy by noon. I walked my fence line, frost crunching under my boots, and found their footprints cutting through the brush, candy wrappers tucked under a rock like they'd staked out my kitchen window. Jasper sniffed the air, uneasy. I whispered, "Steady, boy," and felt the heat behind my eyes. Trouble was circling, and it wasn't done. By midday, they were back, bolder, with a circus in tow. A woman in a navy blazer, Margaret, their leader, strode up with a megaphone, flanked by Carter, Ellis, and a pickup hauling cones, tables, and a banner that read Creek Unity Meeting. Neighbors gathered, some curious, some sheepish. Margaret preached about community values, pointing at my firewood like it was a felony. They tried chaining my gate, waving a laminated sheet called a community resolution, with no judge's name, no county seal. I filmed every move, reciting my parcel lines aloud. When Carter circled my chimney for the live stream, I demanded the code section. He scribbled nonsense. A new guy, Owen, rolled a skid steer toward my fence, claiming to clear combustible materials. The bucket grazed my rail, leaving a bright scrape. I said, "That's damage." He shrugged, engine growling. I called the sheriff again, voice level, and Laura promised a deputy soon. The deputy, Tom, arrived with a badge that didn't need to fake its weight. He read their papers, asked for a warrant, and got nothing but Margaret's talk of standards. He logged the chain as attempted interference, told Owen to back the skid steer off my fence, and warned them about impersonating officers. Margaret smiled like she could charm a courtroom, but Tom wasn't her audience. He handed me a case number, told me to keep filming, and walked them to their SUV. Neighbors lingered, one giving me a nod that felt like a vote. I screwed a no inspection without warrant sign to my gate, right beside the trespass code, and let the creek's quiet settle back in. That night, the power flickered once, twice, like someone testing the line. Jasper's ears perked. I flipped on the generator, its hum a steady pulse. The porch camera blinked alive. At the meter post, I found a lock twisted, fresh scuffs bright under my headlamp. I filmed it, texted Tom, and heard tires on the lower bend. A pickup with a rented lift rolled in, two men in vests, maybe Carter and Ellis, in new costumes carrying bolt cutters and tape. They froze when my camera caught them. I said, "No work order, no county." They muttered about a temporary closure. County lights swung up the grade. Supervisor Clara stepped out, badge glinting, and red-tagged the meter cabinet. She cited tampering, bagged a coil of cable, and told them to step away. Tom arrived, issued citations, and read a trespass notice that named my land. Margaret appeared, claiming community support, but Clara shut her down, saying felonies don't hide behind banners. Neighbors watched, phones out, as the HOA's prop scones, tables, light tower sagged in defeat. At midnight, a drone's buzz cut the silence, a red laser dancing on my wall. I killed the lamp, grabbed a mirror, and caught the quadcopter's flicker above the porch. The bell wire on my back steps trembled. I threw the floodlight and strobe, and the drone crashed into the gutter. Two figures at the cellar froze, then bolted, one limping, one diving into brush. A pickup stalled downhill, tail light cracked. I filmed the crowbar they dropped, a glove, a rag reeking of fuel. Tom texted he was minutes out. I sent him the plate number and a still of the limp. When he arrived, he bagged the evidence, radioed fire to check the cellar, and warned the limping man about county lockup. Margaret tried to spin it as a nuisance generator, but Clara's smile was ice. "Credit'll make it sing," she said. A courier slipped me an envelope emergency hearing notice, stamped with a judge's name I didn't know. Tom said, "Morning's gonna be loud." I barely slept, coffee hissing before dawn. October 13th broke gray over Willow Creek. I drove to the courthouse in town, the air smelling of varnish and old coats. Margaret sat with Carter, Ellis, and a lawyer, Vince, whose tie looked strangled. Clara and Fire Lieutenant Nate took seats behind me. The judge, stern as cedar, called the case. Vince leaned on community character and safety, waving staged photos of straw against my fence. Nate countered with his report, foreign fuel staged by non-authority. Clara detailed tampered locks and forged permits. I handed over my photos, the drone rotor, the company letter exposing misused letterhead. My voice stayed even. They chained my gate, scraped my fence, flew a drone at midnight. I live there. It's mine. The judge's pen moved like a blade. He denied the HOA's motion, issued a protective order barring them from my land, referred the drone and tampering to the prosecutor, and ordered them to cover my power costs. Margaret tried to speak. Vince yanked her sleeve. The judge gave her 2 sentences. She blamed fear. He said fear doesn't sign orders. The clerk's stamp hit the paper like a gavel. Outside, Clara said the credit was live. Nate shook my hand, said the record read clean. Tom promised a dust patrol. Margaret stumbled on the marble steps, neighbors' phones catching her silence. I drove home, past the creek's bend, where the flatbed sat empty, cones gone. Jasper met me at the steps, leaning heavy. The utility truck arrived, Clara cutting the red tag, restoring power with a click that felt like home. She told me to keep filming. I painted the fence scrape bright, pinned the judge's order beside my signs, and nailed the drone prop to the door, framing a reminder that toys aren't law. Neighbors passed, one leaving biscuits with a whisper, "We like honest here." I nodded. The creek hummed, and a chime I'd hung sang soft when the wind nudged it. I filed every photo, wrote, "Thank you," on Tom's card, and let the quiet build. The cabin's lights burned steady, and Jasper dozed without a twitch. It shouldn't take a fight like this to keep what's yours. But when paper and noise pretend to be law, you stand your ground, camera in hand, and let the truth do the talking. What do you think? Can a neighborhood board ever justify crossing lines like this? Have you faced fake authority trying to bully its way in? Should I have grabbed the shotgun sooner, or was patience the better weapon? Drop your thoughts below. Hit that like button if you felt the ridge's pulse, and subscribe for more stories where the ground holds firm.